ready if you are.
I'm always ready, Joel. I got questions for them. Yeah, I'll throw it right back. I'm ready for Frank this time.
All right, here we are, already 2 weekends in when everybody else is looking at week 1 coming up. But just your thoughts here on the first 2 weeks. Rumble the Rockies and then Washington State and MSU Billings this last weekend.
Yeah, super successful start to the season. Rumble and the Rockies, had a bit of a issue in itself with the weather, but for us to be able to pivot and pull off what we pulled off in such a short amount of time with the game the next day, I thought was really impressive. So started off well and then went to Washington State, which was a heck of a great test. Learned our lessons there and continued learning them again with this next one. So just keep getting better every single week. It's early season, and main goal is being really good in November.
And we have Charlie Boone and Maddie Dida here for...
Big time, you guys. Big time.
Are we passing around Mike, or are we just asking? Just checking. If we're just asking, that's fine. Chris, I guess just this non-conference slate, like every year I feel like we ask you about the non-conference, it just gets harder and harder, but, when you're beating, Oregon State, stuff like this, you get to kind of have just getting better and better each year. What does it say about the growth of this program? These non-conference schedules are getting tougher, but you're also getting better results too.
Yeah, my first 2 years we really struggled. I think we were under 500. Well, my first 3 years, always under 500. And so we've seemed to have turned that corner, and we're doing it against good teams too. So it's a testament to the recruiting, to the development of the players, how well they're doing, and how seriously they're taking trying to become a top 100 program in the country and not somebody who just exists somewhere in the middle of the pack. So I think it just keeps getting better every single year, and excited by this time of the year just because it makes us so much better for what's to come in conference play.
For Charlie and Maddie both, just kind of a similar question. Charlie, we can start with you. Just what's it like, I guess, seeing the growth of the program over the years, beating some of these bigger non-conference schools, but then also just the excitement level of getting those big games before conference play starts?
Yeah, no, it's really, really cool seeing the growth of our program, and being able to actually compete with these top schools is awesome and super exciting. And I think it's really, really important for us to learn these lessons and have these tests before preseason or before conference starts. So.
Yeah, just going off what Charlie said, I think it's awesome playing these big teams, and especially the crowds that we're drawing now is just awesome, and the support that we feel from the community is just amazing.
I guess for both you guys, when you are able to match up against the Washington State and they're pretty good, what did you take away from it? What do you want to improve upon after a game like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was definitely hard lessons learned after that game. We had great energy going in there, but at the end of the day, they did finish their chances, and we did not. But I think just taking away from that game and that loss was just our effort and our energy. We need to be able to take, we knew it was a big game coming up, and just being able to match up against those type of players, we need to go in stronger and try to get the lead early on.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Dida, and I think it showed a lot about our identity and where our strengths and weaknesses lie, and how to build on top of those weaknesses and also amplify our strengths. It was really exciting, honestly, to play them, and they showed us a lot of really good examples of what to do moving forward, and again, how to finish and how to just close out games. So, yeah.
Coach school is starting, so if you had to give a letter grade to the first 4 games in fall camp, what would you give it, and then just thoughts on this week and moving forward?
That's awesome. It's as if you're in our locker room, because I sometimes make them grade their own performances, and I feel like they're very harsh on themselves. If you took it in cumulative and I looked at it and said, where would I want to be after the first 4 games of the season, this is exactly where I thought it was going to be. So it's still not anywhere near perfect, but nothing ever is. You're always chasing that perfect game. You never get close to it. So I'd say somewhere in the B's. I'd be happy with that.
And then thoughts on this week, road, home, and the matchups and what you want to see.
Yeah. Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, why do I schedule a game away in the middle of the week and then one at home over the weekend? Because it's just such crazy travel, but it replicates itself in conference play too. We'll be on the road at Sacramento, coming back and playing Portland at home. So it's tough, especially with the teams that we're playing against and the heat that we'll see in California. But again, it just makes you better. And so I've gone from always just, when I first started my career, thinking that these non-conference games are, sometimes stressful, to just really looking forward to them, because the lessons that they learn from them, like I said, all the time, just makes us better game after game after game and gets us ready to ultimately compete for another title, hopefully.
coach in front of a huge crowd for that Oregon State game. You know, what was that just like for you guys? It was kind of like the Ohio State game last year.
Yeah.
Just what was that like?
Yeah, it was amazing, and we didn't have that much less for our game against MSU Billings this past weekend. So the average crowd size is awesome. It's growing well, and the vibrant energy coming out of the crowd at Oregon State was by far my favorite thing. It was, I don't know, it just felt alive. I heard that crowd a lot more than I heard the Ohio State one. They just seem to be engaged, but we also have the kinds of players who can light them up and get them engaged in those settings. And it helps when Maddie Ditta scores in the opening minutes of the game, right? That just ignites the section where it needs to be, and off it goes.
Do you hear the guys on the side of the field blowing the duck whistles?
Who does not hear that? Like, sometimes I wonder what the neighbors think about that. They're like, what is that? Yeah, you hear them all the time. Yep.
Charlie, as a senior coming back with this group, like what's it like, I guess, kind of having that cohesiveness and so many returning starters back, and after last year's success, like how big is that kind of going into your final year here?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I feel like we have a really good group of upperclassmen that have been super helpful in meshing in the freshmen and the newcomers, and also just upholding a really, really high standard for the whole team. But yeah, it's been really good having a group of seniors to help lead and keep this program going.
Maddie, kind of a similar question, just like speak to I guess the chemistry when so many returners are back, where last year was so successful. It just feels like the team's kind of just hitting the ground running versus kind of learning, you know?
Yeah, it's been really nice. Like, just like you said, just a bunch of returners there, so we already have that chemistry together. And then we do have a lot of new like freshmen and one transfer or two, I guess, one from the spring. But I mean, even with them joining in, like with this big group, we're already able to like really combine together great and just already understand how each other play, which is only going to help us in conference.
And Chris, in terms of momentum, just how do you keep this going, right? You like the start, but how do you keep it going and just keep building and building from, you know, it's a long season ahead?
Yeah, it is a long season. We just need to keep challenging them, because if we don't do it, then they just become lazy and think that they're good at what they do, right? So it's always presenting the next problem and how do we evolve this, how do we evolve that? And like you just said, there's a lot of returners coming back. The returners understand the mountain that you have to climb to get to where you want to be. Everybody knows it's just early season, and we've got to find times to also take breaks. Because if you take a break, it allows you to rejuvenate, to come back and just continue rolling, right? If I look at football, they have bye weeks. We don't have bye weeks. You just continue rolling through it. So sometimes finding a little extra time for them to just breathe so that they can stay energized throughout this whole long season.
On the road, do you have a favorite go-to place for food?
Oh, that's a good question. I know somebody here loves Olive Garden. I wouldn't say Olive Garden is my favorite. It is a heck of a place. I do hear that, yes. I don't know. I leave that up to Jay. Sometimes I ask the team, but they're so picky and weird that I don't know. I personally will eat anything. Maybe it's a good question for Charlie and Maddie.
We don't have like a specific place that we go to like every away trip. It's honestly like a mix of different places.
Yeah. I
So-
feel like we find a good amount of like local spots, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have one story from last year where we found this one spot. So it was playing UND and NDSU, hotel issues because of Pink. Right? We can't stay in Fargo because Pink is performing there just like she's performing here now. So we kicked out to stay in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. And Jay, my associate head coach, who's going to hate the fact that I'm sharing this story, but Jay ends up finding this place called the Pitchfork, which is in the middle of nowhere. Like, you're driving around, there's farms, there's like an old abandoned bowling alley that has been turned into a restaurant in the middle of a farm. And you're like, it looks good. Well, food poisoning galore, right? So now we kind of just make sure that the reviews are there, kitchen looks good. Yeah, good story, good times. Hey, Jay, thanks, buddy.
Charlie, as in your final year, what's your mindset like this year compared to previous years when it's, okay, there is an end point now that's looming large for you? Does that change how you approach your role on the team and the voice you have?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, you have to have like a little bit more of an edge to you, knowing that you only have one final season with this team, but it's also, I think, about just enjoying all these little moments and soaking everything up. But in the end, like, we know we have a vision to win Big Sky and make it to NCAA tournament, so just having that always like in the front part of my head as well. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice, Char. Way to keep it together.
Like, when Stitt was here, they always had Chick-fil-A.